the Titans, the division is ours.
Oh my
I don't
gosh.
care what Houston did yesterday. They're going to go get their Letterman jackets again. The Indianapolis Colts are 2-6 against the Titans since Pat McAfee came up here and did his wrestling announcement. And the Jacksonville Jaguars, they haven't had back-to-back winning seasons since I was a senior in high school.
Everybody catching.
I don't wanna hear any more small talk. Off that short pier, take a long walk. My style ain't free cause it ain't off top. I'm at your throat, go get a cough drop. I don't wanna hear any more small talk. Off that short pier, take a long walk. My style ain't free cause it ain't off top. I'm at your throat, go get a cough drop. It's Kush. I love me too much and your brain turn to mush. Fall flat on your tush. You couldn't handle the product I push. I guess I'm just used to it, I just do it. Like Nike swoosh, none of that Reggie Bush. Cause I'm top shelf, I ain't got wealth. But I'm on my grind like park rails. I'd sell the shoes right off my 2 feet. Then add one, that's a yard sale. Got dumb bars that be smarter than Harvard, Yale. Take your pictures elsewhere. You wanna be TMZ, I wanna be VIP. Quit pandering, I'm not answering. Cause I don't wanna hear any more small talk. Off that short pier, take a long walk. My style ain't free cause it ain't off top. I'm at your throat, go get a cough drop. I don't wanna hear any more small talk. Off that short pier, take a long walk. My style ain't free cause it ain't off top. I'm at your throat, go get a cough drop. All of that bark and no bite, that's alright. Not everyone can be the big dog. Take a walk, kick rocks. Can't keep me out cause I pick locks. They hearing me knocking, I'll never be stopping. I keep this shit popping like lip gloss. Get me pissed off and the whole squad point the red dots. Something like chicken pox, give me all what you got like it raw, shimmy y'all. Feeling like Tony Hawk, never soft, let it rock, better not get involved. Running a marathon and you a tourist. This my world, you a tourist. Fuck with the bullet, you get in the horns, I'm a tourist. I don't wanna hear any more small talk. Off that short pier, take a long walk. My style ain't free cause it ain't off top. I'm at your throat, go get a cough drop. I don't wanna hear any more small talk. Off that short pier, take a long walk. My style ain't free cause it ain't off top. I'm at your throat, go get a cough drop.
Titans, the division is.
Hey everyone, good evening and welcome to another edition of the Titans Fan Battle podcast, brought to you as always by the Fan Battle Sports Network. And as always, remember to join us over on fanbattlesports.com for the latest blogs and opinions on all of the AFC South teams and expanding all the time, going into college teams, other NFL teams. And you can find previous episodes over there. Remember to like, share, comment, all that good stuff. But we're here today to talk about a few changes over in Titans land. We was trying to get on here multiple times last week, but I was under the weather and couldn't get vertical long enough to do it. But here we are today. So, Tyler, you want to say tighten up to everybody?
Welcome, everyone, and welcome to the dawn of the Callahan era in Nashville, Tennessee.
Absolutely. That's the first thing on the docket tonight. We got a new head coach, and it's actually the number one head coach that I was wanting from the moment we fired Vrabel. I said I wanted Brian Callahan, and they went out there and got him. So kind of funny the way that he ended up there, because he was scheduled for interviews with the Panthers the next day after us, the Falcons the day after that, and his flight got canceled due to weather coming to Nashville. So we was actually going to move to the back of the line. And Amy ended up sending the Titans private jet to go and get him to make sure we stayed first in line and didn't let him out of the building without signing the contract. So he was also the first head coach hired from outside the organization in this hiring cycle. So I feel like we had him as our number one guy. We went out there and made things happen, make sure we got who we wanted right there. So you think we got the right guy? Was you looking at someone else as head coach, or?
I mean, I definitely was vocal that I wanted the offensive coordinator from the Texans. He was my number one person. I'm a little intrigued as to why no one hired him, because he had a bunch of requests. which leads me to believe that a lot of teams just think that there were 8 coaching openings this season, and none of the 8 took him. Leads me to believe that they must think that he needs a couple more years to cook in Southern Texas before taking a position as a head coach elsewhere. But Brian Callahan was my number 2. I think we'd been very vocal between you and I about how we wanted an offensive-minded coach. So I'm excited for what the future is going to hold, and I'm really liking the hiring so far for the team around him. It makes me optimistic about the future. I think it is still very early to tell what the future is going to look like under him. But I think that everyone should welcome him with open arms because this is our team. And why would you not want him to be successful?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Bobby Slowick was number 1 on most Titans fans' list. And the reason I didn't want him was, as you said, he's a rookie offensive coordinator. I'd like to see him do it more than 1 year before we hand the team over to him.
Yeah.
But I was seeing multiple reports on ESPN and NFL Network that he didn't interview well, that it didn't have to do with his resume or anything. It's like he didn't instill that confidence in the GMs that were interviewing him.
Mm-hmm.
So it may just, if he is a young offensive coordinator, it may just take him a year or 2 to get that interview process down.
Yeah.
And number 2 on most of the as far as offensive coordinators interviewing for the job, a lot of people wanted Ben Johnson, the Lions offensive coordinator, and everybody kind of gave up on him because all the reports said he was the Commanders head coach, that as soon as the Lions exited, they were signing him, and then they end up waiting on him, and then he decides to stay in Detroit, and so they lose out on all of the head coaching hires and end up with Dan Quinn.
Yeah, I mean, you could be aggressive like the Titans were, or you can be conservative like the Commanders. We'll see in a season and 2 how it shakes out.
Yeah, I agree. We got the 7th pick. They got the number 2 pick. We both have young quarterbacks, so we're in similar situations. And so we'll see if we had the right approach or if they did.
And we have the number 1 and number 2 most cap space going into this offseason.
Yeah, good point. We're within like $3 million of each other in cap space.
And let's pray to the football gods that we cut Dillard from our roster so that we get more money.
Oh yeah, I think as soon as the off season starts, the first day of the league year, he has to go, and that's $6.5 million that gets added to our cap space. That would move us up into first place in cap space.
It is needed because he did not help us. He hurt us.
Yeah, in every way possible. So, but something that I do think is going to help us is we also went out and got aggressive with their defensive coordinator hire. We went out and got the Ravens defensive back coach at Denard Wilson. So I was looking at his history as a coach and just to run down some of the stuff he did. His first time as a DB's coach was with the Rams. He produced the 8th fewest passing touchdowns allowed during that time, the 5th fewest yards per completion, and the 10th best pass defense.
Now, let's also talk about how that Rams defense had 2 of the greatest defensive players of all time. And Jalen Ramsey.
Yeah, was that the years he was there? It may have been.
Yeah. Aaron, this is Jalen Ramsey's first year not on the Rams.
Yeah, he was with the Eagles. I mean, with the Eagles before the Ravens, though. Yeah. Oh no, it wasn't. The Rams was in 2014. He was a Ram.
How long was he in LA?
3 years.
Well, see, we wouldn't have had. I don't think he would have had him. So that means that he would have at least had probably the number 2 greatest defensive player of all time in Aaron Donald at the very least.
Definitely had Aaron Donald. Yeah, it helps your back end coverage when Aaron Donald's getting those sacks and pressures.
Yeah. when you have a guy that's getting double and triple teamed by offensive linemen.
From there, he moved on to the Jets, where he allowed the 9th fewest yards per completion. And from there, he moved on to the Eagles, where he had the number 1 pass defense and allowed the 3rd lowest passer rating during his year there, or 2 years there, I'm sorry. And then last year, he was with the Ravens, where they had the number 6 pass defense, the 3rd most interceptions, and the lowest passer rating allowed. So everywhere he's went, he's had success. So that's been our weak spot, is that back end coverage. So maybe he can spark some magic for us the way he has everywhere else that he's been.
Yeah, I think it's an A+ hire personally. Ever since we lost Logan Ryan, and that like era of 3 really good starting defensive backs, the secondary for the Titans has always been kind of below average ever since then. I mean, we had Kevin Byard, but really there was nobody else that was able to go out there and shut down receivers when we were playing them. So I think it's an A+ hire for sure at the moment, because I think his resume speaks for itself. I mean, he took Marlon Humphrey for the Ravens, and look at his production for them. Kyle Hamilton is in his 2nd season for the Ravens, and he's an All-Pro. So working with that and playing with players that are such high caliber leaves a lot of optimism to look forward to for this team, where for the past 3, 4, 5 seasons or so, that has really been kind of one of the drags on this roster, because how many years in a row have we had a bottom 5 pass defense in the entire NFL? Yeah. And so now that we have him, and he's getting to work with a young Jeffrey Simmons who's in his prime, I'm excited to see what he does. And I think it's necessary, because we got to play CJ Stroud twice a year. We got to play Trevor Lawrence twice a year. Those 2 have kind of proven their worth already. The jury is still out on Anthony Richardson. So he comes to this team at a very dire time, when we need to start really working on that secondary.
Yeah, and you talked about him, what he done when he had Donald getting those pressures and stuff. And Aaron Donald has been vocal about Jeffrey Simmons being the next in line behind him to the next great defensive tackle. So, I mean, he's proven what he can do with those weapons.
Yeah.
But then the one hire I think we've made that kind of leaves me scratching my head is we hired for the wide receiver coach, Tyke Tolbert. And so he comes from, his pedigree as the Panthers as a wide receiver coach, the Broncos as a wide receiver coach, the Giants, and then last year with the Bears. I mean, none of these are teams that you look at and say, wow, their pass game is amazing.
So I think that I seen that before we got on here. I think that the biggest reason there is because they have a relationship between the 2, between Callahan and him. So I'm not sure if I hope that it's, not going to be a major issue, but I mean, we'll see what happens. I mean, not everybody can have Reggie Wayne as a wide receiver coach.
Right. Yeah, I don't think that it's a major deal because Callahan's already said he's the former QB coach. He's a pass game specialist, and he's calling his own plays. So he's going to have the most say and the biggest thumbprint on the pass game, no matter who the wide receiver coach is.
And I also think that a lot of that has to do with the fact that, number one, you have to have some sort of assistant. I think the rule in the NFL is that it's an offensive assistant that's African American. Yeah. So I'm not sure if maybe that they did that to appease to that. Maybe they did that in hopes that maybe down the line they want some compensatory picks in the third round if they think that he has a shot of potentially moving up the ladder someday.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something because, when we hired Rand Carthon, the 49ers got 2 third-round picks from that.
Yeah.
And between him and also the defensive coordinator, Wilson, if either one of those get hired by another team, then that's just going to bolster us with day 2 picks.
Yeah. It'll be good in the long run.
Oh yeah, I agree. The one big position left for us to fill is the offensive coordinator, which we've had 3 interviews for. So the 3 interviews are the Bucs quarterback coach Thad Lewis, the Dolphins assistant head coach Eric Strutzville, I think is how you say his last name, and the Jaguars pass game coordinator Nick Holes. Do any of those do anything for you, or you think that we should be looking elsewhere? You have another name in mind?
I think this is pretty simple, in my opinion. Out of those 3, only one of them have had a game this season where they put up 70 points in a game.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm going to leave that.
Yeah, and the Dolphins assistant head coach there, Strutzville, he's been my number 1 target for offensive coordinator from the beginning. And the reason why, I've got a few reasons. First, he's the assistant head coach. So clearly they've got a lot of confidence in him. They think highly of him. But he's also their run game coordinator. So he's got fingerprints on the offense already. And so he's also the running backs coach. And we've got a young running back. So he's going to need, if he's going to take over, he's going to need good coaching. And he's been their running back coach since 2017. So it ain't a new hire or anything. Mm-hmm. Before he became their running backs coach, he was the Broncos running back coach who traditionally had a great running game. Yeah. And they have gone all the way back into the 80s and 90s. But he remained the running backs coach through 4 coaching changes there. And so every time they would fire a head coach for 8 years, the new head coach would come in and say, I want to keep this guy. So, I mean, he's got a strong running pedigree. And we have Callahan as a pass specialist head coach who's calling his own plays. And so I think it would be a good balance to have a running offensive coordinator, and who's also, the Dolphins are considered the 4th most analytically driven team in the NFL. So he's going to not have to call plays, but he's going to be able to look situationally at the analytics and be in Callahan's ear and say, run here, play action here. And I think it's going to just strengthen the offense all the way around.
Well, I think at the very least, something that we need to talk about is how all of a sudden, with Callahan as our head coach, these people want to come to Tennessee. They are choosing this franchise where they over these other franchises that had a winning record this season. I think it speaks a lot to the pedigree of what Ran and what Brian Callahan want for this team right now and what they want for the future, and etc. And so that's why I have a lot of optimism, because these guys that are very in network with the big wigs in the NFL, with the owners, with, you know, all the big names in the NFL, they see this guy and they want to come work for him. This past off season, where we weren't reading about people wanting to go to the Texans to be alongside with DeMeco Ryans. People weren't choosing the Texans franchise over all of these others. And I bring up DeMeco Ryans because I'm presuming he's going to be the head coach of the year. So there's a lot to be excited for. There's obviously room for error. You know, I'm not foreseeing us going to the Super Bowl next year. It would be nice. I would love it. But I don't foresee that for us yet. But I think we as Titans fans, we are seeing what having a head coach where people want to coach with you and not your friends. I think that we are setting ourselves up for a good future.
Yeah, I agree. And that's something I didn't touch on with the defensive coordinator hire. Wilson, you know, when we hired him, he was the DB coach for the Ravens. The Ravens defensive coordinator was hired as a head coach in Seattle. And so the Ravens, if once he got hired, within 30 minutes, we was announcing the hire of Wilson. And if the Ravens had promoted him to defensive coordinator of Baltimore, we couldn't have hired him. So when the defensive coordinator position became open, we had to make a quick decision, and the decision was to give him an offer. But in addition to the Ravens potentially giving him an offer, they're saying 2 other teams had standing offers on the table. And he chose to turn down all 3, the Ravens and those other 2 mystery teams, and said, I want to go coach with Callahan. So, I mean, like you said, that would not have happened last year with Vrabel, I don't think.
Yeah. Well, and I think that there's a lot to be said because, I mean, you have Callahan, who was an offensive coordinator in Cincinnati with a very high caliber offense with, you know, the likes of Jamar Chase and Mixon and Higgins and Burrow. You know, they're going to make a DB coach really angry and really frustrated when you're having to double and triple team Jamar Chase. So I think my hope is that the 2 of them in practices and when scheming plays, things like that, that they are going to be looking at, okay, like that they're going to challenge each other. Because if they go in it with that mindset, I think that it could really benefit this team. Because that's not something we were getting during the Vrabel era. We were just, you're my friend. I go have some drinks with you at the bar, or we used to coach with each other in Texas a couple of years ago. Why don't you come coach with me here? So I'm excited to see that. Now, Callahan hiring his dad. I mean, I'm like, oh, maybe this is presumptive. But then when you read he's one of the greatest offensive line coaches in all of NFL history, and we have an offensive line problem, you want the best of the best. So,
yeah, I don't mind him hiring his dad either, which that was the next thing on my list. They asked him about it at his press conference, and he kind of gave a sideways smile and said he's under contract. I can't talk about that. Well, right before we come on here, news breaks that we've officially requested an interview with his dad now, and his dad's believed to already be on his way to Nashville pretty much.
I read something before we got on here that the Browns accepted his request to leave the team.
That would be, I didn't see that yet, but that would be major if they do accept that request, because that would mean that we don't have to promote him. We could bring him on as the O-line coach. Because if they denied his request to leave, then we would have to promote him to something like assistant head coach or something.
Yeah, I could have swore I seen that they accepted his request for release.
Nice. And like just running down his resume, 4 decades as a coach, 3 decades in the NFL. I mean, you can't ask for a better pedigree than that to come onto your coaching staff. He's been the head coach of multiple NFL teams, considered, like you said, one of the greatest in NFL history to do it. So, I mean, that's our biggest weakness. So if we can get one of the best ever to come in, then I say do it.
I mean, that's like saying that you would want to reject Bill Belichick as your defensive coordinator.
Exactly. Which, with Dan Quinn getting hired, and Jerry Jones said that never say never about Belichick coming to the Cowboys. So, I mean, maybe he is going to be a defensive coordinator this year.
I don't foresee that happening.
Another one of the greatest that ever do it he's requesting to get an interview with the Titans is Mike Munchak. Have you read anything about that?
Yeah, I seen that. Did we request him or did he request us?
No, he requested us. And so like his history, 8-time All-Pro offensive lineman, 9-time Pro Bowler, the 1980s NFL All-Decade team, and his numbers retired in the Titans Ring of Honor. And he's in the Texas Sports Hall of Fame for his time as an Oiler. So he spent 11 years playing for us before we became the Titans. The day that he retired, the very next week, he was hired on to coach the offensive line. And he spent over 10 years doing that, 3 years as the head coach of the Titans. So he's also considered one of the 10 or 15 best offensive line coaches in NFL history. And so if we do get Callahan and give him a promotion, bring Munchak, you got 2 of the top 15 or 20 ever to do it. And coaching the O-line, as long as they're seeing eye to eye in the way they're coaching, then I don't see how we could go wrong bringing those 2 on. Because his thing was he spent so long making us an elite O-line, so he wants to come out of retirement, and it would be like his legacy to come back and rescue the O-line again.
How heroic of him. I mean, that would be nice. I mean, idealistically, again, like that would be nice if that were to happen. I mean, at the end of the day, to speak factually, we can have the best coaches in the world, but you have to be able to get the players. So we'll see what happens. I mean, it's a possibility that we have 4 brand new starters on that offensive line this upcoming season.
Yeah, I think we need at least 3 brand new ones. I wouldn't mind if we keep anyone. Of course, we're keeping Skronsky, but keep Brunskill at the right guard. But then both tackles and center definitely we have to replace. And looking at Munchak's bio here, he's 62, so he's 10 years younger than Bill Belichick, and we're talking about him looking for a job. So, I mean, he's not too old to come back, I guess.
That's true. I mean, we're all talking about multimillionaires, so they're sitting at home in their mansions, twaddling their thumbs, trying to find things to do.
Yeah, exactly. That's what's his name, Frank Reich. He's getting paid how many million from the Colts and from the Panthers right now, and still looking for a third job. That dude's just sitting at home laughing all the way to the bank right now.
I mean, I want his job. I want to sit on my couch and make millions of dollars a year.
Yeah, exactly. He's coached 12 games or 13 games the last 2 seasons, and he's getting paid until 2026 by both teams.
Yeah, must be nice. You know what I could do with all that money? I'd go on vacation every day.
Yeah, I wouldn't be working, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit, touched on Belichick. Also Vrabel. I mean, two guys that when they got cut, everyone said they'll be hired within a week. And all the head coaching jobs are filled. They're both sitting on the sidelines for 2024. You think that either of them, you think that's I think it's the end for Belichick. I mean, you're 72, like, take the opportunity and retire with some grace. Just go off into the sunset. But Vrabel, I think he'll probably be back next year.
I think the reason why Belichick wasn't hired is I read all the reports that said that he wanted basically a lot of control in the roster. He basically wanted the same thing with all these other teams that he was interviewing with that he had in New England. And not everybody runs their system that way. I mean, if I've got a 6-time Super Bowl champion coach, I mean, I'm going to listen to what he has to say. I think I don't necessarily think it's a bad idea for him to maybe take a season off, really like work on some schemes. And then when there are coaching positions available next year, which I'm sure there will be, I think I know a couple, then he'll have somewhere to go.
I agree. I really thought that he had a decent shot at the Seahawks job with Vrabel as his defensive coordinator, but
I read that his best shot was the Falcons.
Yeah, that he asked for everything from the Falcons. They said that he was wanting way too much money plus full control of the team.
Yeah. Who do you think? What teams do you think have coaching openings next year?
That's a good question. I wonder how patient the Jaguars are going to be after this. Last year, they were one loss from getting eliminated and then went on the miracle run and barely make the playoffs. And then this year is just a complete letdown from start to finish. Like, how patient are they going to be knowing that they've got Trevor Lawrence and he ain't getting any younger?
Fair. Okay.
Other than that, I could see the Giants making a move. They've been like down for quite a while.
Yeah, they just had a coach last year win head coach of the year. I think he still has another year or two. I think he still has at least 2 years left in him.
That's what we said about Vrabel too. Seeing 2021.
True. Okay.
Because I mean, the Giants have basically squandered Daniel Jones. Like, he's halfway through his second contract at this point.
I'm gonna say something that's gonna shock a lot of people.
What's that?
I think the Pittsburgh Steelers are looking for a new head coach after next season.
See, they were talking. I mean, they were talking about it this year, but it depended on Tomlin wanting to retire, and he decided he didn't want to. But he took a long time to make that decision. And the Cowboys, they wasn't very, very confident going into the offseason either. After that playoff loss, there was talks about them moving on. So, I mean, they said they're going to give him one more year, but what happens next year?
Who knows?
But we have 8, which is 25% of the NFL this year. So, I mean, every year you're going to get a few.
That is true.
But speaking of this coming season and surprises, so Henry said goodbye at the end of the season and went out on the 50-yard line and got on the PA system and thanked the fans. But then last week he gives an interview and says that he thinks that the door is closed from the Titans' end, but it's not closed from his end, that he's still open to coming back. And then Callahan says that he'll never turn down good teams and Henry fits his system, that he's open to Henry coming back. So is the door a little bit further open than what we thought it was for Henry to retire a Titan?
With this one, I'm stuck because Henry has been an advocate for higher running back pay for years now. And we have seen the success that the Titans have had at the hands of Derrick Henry. I mean, when you have someone who has the talent and ability that Derrick Henry has, it's hard to not be successful. However, I think that what he's going to want and what he's going to ask for, he's not going to get in Ran, because I think if I am in Rand's mind, okay, I just drafted a third-round running back who has showed some promise, and if I go out there and I give him a little bit better of an offensive line than what I gave him last year, he could potentially take over this team. I definitely don't want to see Derrick Henry go, because I just bought his jersey, not that long ago. But what I think it's going to come down to is how much money is he asking for? He's only got, running back shelf lives are not very long in the National Football League. He's got maybe 3 good years left in him before, we start to see grandfather time. Like I said, I think it all comes down to the amount of money he wants. He was making $14 million this year.
Yeah.
I think he's going to want 16, and I don't think Rand's going to give it to him.
No, and nor should he. If he asks for 16, then I don't think you can come close to that. I see where I would be at with him would be because like you said, running back shelf life ain't long. The traditional mark is 30 years old. You start declining, and he turned 30 on January 7th, I think it was. So, unless you're Frank Gore or Adrian Peterson, there ain't many yards to gain after you turn 30.
Yeah.
And I would be comfortable at 13 or 14 million over 2 years. I'm not getting close to the 14 million he made this year. I'm looking at a $6 to $7 million payday, because
he's not going to take that.
No, I don't think he will either. But he's not going to get we're paying him 14 million to get 250 to 300 carries on the season. He's not going to get that next year. Like you said, with Spears taking a share of those carries, the money goes down when the carries go down.
Yeah.
And Spears, he spoke up in an interview as well. He said that that he would love to share carries with Henry again, and that he's fully comfortable with his role on the team. If Henry goes, he's ready to step up, but he would prefer for Henry to stay and us have a split backfield.
That's just more options for Will Levis.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think for Henry to stay, he's also going to want to see us invest in the offensive line, even if we don't invest in him. So looking at free agency, do you see anyone, one or two free agents out there that you think would help the offense?
Well, I was looking at the top 20 list of free agents this season. I think there was one offensive lineman that cracked the top 20, and that was Tyron Smith from the Cowboys. Yep. This is such a heavy offensive line draft. I definitely don't think that we should go out and get 3 rookies to start on our offensive line. But, I wouldn't be opposed to Tyron Smith. Again, anything's better than Andre Dillard.
Yeah.
I would love to definitely see him. The out of everyone that's in the top 20 list, I would welcome all of them with open arms except for one. And that one is Michael Thomas from the Tampa Bay Bucks. And it's not that I wouldn't want him on the team. It's just that I don't want the Titans to become the retirement home for wide receivers, like what the Indianapolis Colts franchises come for retirement homes for quarterbacks. I don't want 30+ year old wide receivers on our roster starting at number 1 and number 2, unless we were to trade D-Hop to get more money in cap space and to get maybe an additional pick or 2 on day 2 or 3. I that's the only one I personally would not want. I know a lot of people in the Titans nation are wanting T. Higgins because I think he's the top wide receiver projected to go into free agency this year. And a lot of people see the connection because of Brian Callahan. Brian Callahan was his offensive coordinator. However, the issue is the Browns are really hardcore trying to get him is the other issue. And do I want Will Levis, who really hasn't shown his full potential, or do I want to go to a really good team, a really good roster in the Browns, who have Deshaun Watson, who's one massage away from going away for a while?
Yeah, and I like everybody wants T. Higgins, and I would love to get T. Higgins. I don't think he's going to be a free agent though, because the Bengals are top 5 in cap space as well, and they can extend Chase this year, but that money don't hit till 2025. So they could afford to franchise tag T. Higgins and keep the team together.
Yeah, but they have so many different needs on that team. I mean, that secondary really took a hit when they let Bates go to the Falcons. They still need to work on that offensive line. They need a tight end. So while yes, they do have a lot of cap space. I don't know if T. Higgins wants to stay there. Who knows? It's possible that he doesn't want to leave, but there's no way that they're going to keep all 3 of those wide receivers on that roster.
I think they're going to for 2024. I think they break it up 2025, and that's when they really get into salary cap trouble because they've already paid Burrow, and then they got to pay Chase right behind that. And so that's when, like, when you got a third of your salary cap in 2 players.
Yeah. I don't think that, because the other wide receiver, his name escapes me. It's Tyler Boyd.
Yeah, Boyd.
I mean, those are all
free this year as well. He may be the one that they let go. Yeah,
that's what I was saying. I mean, those wide receivers are going to go into free agency, and they're going to get paid 20+ million.
Oh yeah.
So they can't keep both wide receivers and pay them both $20 million.
Nah. I think Boyd definitely hits free agency this year. But Tyron Smith, he's like you said, one of probably the top offensive lineman in free agency, but he's also turning 34 this year. It's like, how much money are you going to invest in a 34-year-old left tackle?
True.
And so that's why my number one target in free agency would be the Dolphins center, Connor Williams, who's the number one center in free agency. And so you fill that need in the middle, and then you can go out with the 7th pick and fill your left tackle. And so then you've gotten younger and better all the way across the left side of your line.
Not a bad idea, especially since we could get Connor Williams for cheap because we ended his season.
Yeah, exactly. and if we hire their assistant head coach as their offensive coordinator, then we've got a built-in recruiter there that can bring him over.
Yeah, that is true.
But before we wrap it up, you got any draft targets? I know everybody's wanting either Neighbors or a left tackle at number 7. You have any surprise picks? Maybe somebody in the 2nd round you're looking at?
I think every Titan at the end of the day wants Marvin Harrison Jr. I just think that we all are under the impression that he won't be there.
Yeah.
I think draft day is full of surprises, and there are teams in the NFL that are very QB needy. I mean, you've got the Falcons, you've got the Raiders, the Broncos that could very quickly move up and try to move up in the draft to get a quarterback.
Yeah.
So anything is possible.
On draft night, right before the draft hit this past year, Mel Kiper released his final mock draft, which had Will Levis going at number 4, and we got him at number 33. So, I mean, there's always somebody dropping unexpectedly.
That is true.
So, assuming we get a left tackle in the 1st round, I was hoping we could address wide receiver in the 2nd round. Polk out of Washington. He's one of the top 10 or 12 wide receivers in the nation. And I mean, he's no Marvin Harrison or Neighbors, but he's right there at that very next level.
I also think Brock Bowers will drop into the 2nd round. And I'd be okay with us trying to get him because not only could he help us in the blocking game, but he could also be a vertical threat.
Yeah, if he drops out of the 1st round, then that's a no-brainer. I think that we trade up to the top of the 2nd round just like we did last year.
Yeah.
But I think that's pretty much got us caught up on all the crazy coaching news we've had this past week. So hopefully we'll have an offensive coordinator to talk about next time around.
Let's hope.
But for this time, I guess that's going to do it. You want to tell everybody where they can find you at?
You can add me on Facebook at Tyler Warren or on Instagram at Manning of Steel 2018.
All right. And as always, you can find me on X at Titans W Order. And until next time, we appreciate everyone joining us here for the Titans Fan Battle podcast. Don't forget fanbattlesports.com. Go over there and read our opinions that we have during the week in between episodes on everything Titans or AFC South related. So we'll see y'all next time.
Have a good one.